Yeah, you know, we sent to the proposed. Yeah, no, it's good. Coverage for like. Illustration. It's functioning like my object. No, if we come in, I know, just putting it on chains. And so, yeah, she's like, yeah, no, yeah, it's fine. Sure, good. Yeah, so I'm saying, I'm gonna sit on this. It's only but you're gonna realize it needs the opposite of those kids. Not taking it. Yeah. Okay. We were, yes. Right now, I have not used the lighting. Looking up in the way. States, I tell you what, you must be gosh. You know what? There could be some connection. I mean, it's next week. Around. So sure. Sure. It's not. That's right. Which is why I look at it. Yeah. Tried something other like yes. So I actually a couple of results in the recording in
Good evening, good afternoon. Hello, everyone. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gadigal people, and pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. We also stand alongside Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders across Australia in supporting the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Carmen Elder. I'm a partner here at DLA Piper in the Sydney office. it is our pleasure to welcome you on behalf of DLA Piper this evening to the panel forum, which is hosted in partnership with Insurtech Australia. We are unashamedly thrilled to bring together such a dynamic group of people from across the insurance sector and the technology sector to explore the transformative innovations shaping the future of insurance broking and distribution. Here at DLA Piper, we are really proud to support conversations that foster collaboration and forward-thinking solutions. Today's event is a reflection of just that, a space where brokers, agencies and insurtechs can come together to share insights, tackle challenges and hopefully uncover some opportunities. We're honoured to be joined by an outstanding panel of industry leaders who you will meet shortly. Jenny Bax, CEO of UAC, Richard Klipin, CEO of NIBA, and Daniel Fogarty, CEO and founder of Evari. Moderated by my colleague Sophie Devitt, the panel will explore the operational and strategic challenges facing brokers and agencies and how digital tools, automation and AI are enabling innovation, resilience, and most importantly, trust in client relationships. In addition to the panel, we encourage you to take time to connect with Insurtech Australia's startup exhibitors, who are showcasing the cutting-edge solutions and services that are tailored for brokers and agency businesses. Their presence here today highlights the incredible depth of innovation happening across the Insurtech ecosystem. Finally, I would like to acknowledge our event partner, Insurtech Australia, whose leadership and support have been instrumental in bringing this forum to life. It's now my pleasure to invite Simone Dossiter, CEO of Insurtech Australia, to share a few words. Simone, over to you.
Squeeze back these slides. So thank you, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. We did this event 2 years ago, and it was really the first in our initiatives to really sort of focus on the broker sector and understanding what their needs were. And we had so many businesses that had these great solutions. And then really over the last 2 years, we've also been able to work much more closely with the Underwriting Agencies Council, so it made sense to bring them into this event as well. So I want to thank the DLA Piper team. It's great working with all of you. Linda, who's been one of our earliest supporters, Sam, who's not here, Sophie, and everyone else. And I think really being able to bring it together is fantastic. So today we're going to have a bit of a panel session. So you'll hear some stories around what are the challenges the brokers and agencies are facing, some of the opportunities and things that the Insurtechs are doing, and there'll be some Q&A. And then at the end, we'll bring, I think it's 9 Insurtechs up for a very brief intro of who they are, and we'll go from there. I have one more slide, yes. Most people, I think, we know what Insurtech Australia do. But broadly, our core mission is really around bringing together a world-leading ecosystem. We're meeting with a company today, and they have been involved in PropTech and in FinTech, and I was like, well, why are we joining sort of Insurtech now? It was sort of part of their solution, and it was about the community that they felt that where their business was at and where they could really get some connections and really bring the business to the next stage. So it was really nice to sort of hear what we're doing and what it's seeing. We don't always necessarily know how far we go out, but that's very much what we aim to do through events like this, through Insurtech Live, which we're busily planning for 18th February, through working with our partners such as DLA and all other insurance and broker partners. We're very much around sort of access. So it's really how do we help connect everybody together, whether that's with the work we do with Austrade, with UK Gov, in launching the Insurtech Pathway this year, but also how do we work with other Insurtech associations and the other insurance associations. So we're very sort of narrow and focused in what we do as a small team, so we really want to be able to collaborate right across the industry. We have our ecosystem map on our website, which we launched last year. So we have some of our businesses there, but there's 80 or 90 others that are all doing lots of great things. And really, often people saying you're very busy and you're traveling, and it's really all the work that we do around how do we amplify the brands and help amplify all of your brands, and doing that through all our various channels. And then finally, we've sort of really got some great traction in the last sort of 12 months or so, having a couple of targeted working groups Our advisory committee has been supporting us around our strategy for a number of years, but regulatory compliance is such an important topic in the insurance industry. Anne-Marie Coleman leads that, and really being able to help bring the Insurtechs along the journey of what's happening. Life insurance, not so much an area here, but it's an area that is really ripe for innovation. And so we've got some activities around that in the next few weeks. We're just doing our member and our partner survey, and we have some leadership this year. We launched a report in March. We've got another report coming out at the end of the year. So lots happening. With that, I'm going to hand over to our fantastic panel.
Yeah, thank you. Panelists up.
If you want us to sit in the way our phones are.
Oh, no, you can mix it up. It's all right. I think people will be able to connect it.
That's right. Jenny.
Thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon. I had the opportunity before today to speak with each of our wonderful panelists, and it's fair to say I'm keeping my phone here to just keep an eye on the time, because in each conversation I could just speak to one of them for the whole time that we've got allocated this afternoon. So we will try and cover a lot of topics and have as much as possible a fluid conversation for you this evening. The topic is huge. It is going at such a pace. And if I can reference The Economist in July, it was basically saying that from the tech bosses of Silicon Valley, they're saying that humanity is approaching a moment where the future is unrecognisable, which could be a little bit terrifying, but also an opportunity and very exciting. And so what we want to cover today, focusing in on the broker agency and of course the technology solutions that come with that. We are going to have a bit of a theme around AI because of course, you know, it's not even right to call it the elephant in the room. It's here, it's rocketing along, and the sooner half an hour up here talking to the panelists, but then we're going to throw to questions. So please be thinking about that. And I want to make sure that we do allow time for that, because I'm sure there are some great questions that you have or will be thinking of as the panel progresses this evening. But a good place to start, I think it's fair to say, is what is AI? And so there's going to be people in this room that definitely have a view on that, but I'm going to throw to Daniel to kick us off on what is AI. What are we talking about?
Yeah, thanks, Sophie. Not sure if that works. Thanks, Sophie. Now, look, first I want to start with why I'm wearing a suit, because I'm sort of out of the suit world and into the t-shirt world. So I had a very proud family moment today. My brother got an Order of Australia medal this morning, so I was at Government House getting that. So I had to wear a suit. I told Richard I wore it for him, but I actually wore it for my brother. So I'd prefer to be in a t-shirt. And also we are people know a bit about what we do at Evari. We're actually selling to the brokers. We're selling to the underwriting agencies, and we actually want to partner with all the Insurtechs here as well. So we've developed AI like everyone else has. So we want to see what we can work with there. So before here, I got here early, obviously, and because I'm one of the banner folks, and asked the people in the room who are using AI, what is their definition of AI? I probably asked about, well, people, I think I got a problem for definition. So pretty much, some people answered them very quickly and authoritatively, and some people just rolled their eyes and said, "Oh, that's such a big question, I can't answer it," and then gave me an answer. But look, I think it is a very complicated place, and everyone's going to have their own definition. Why is it complicated? Because this is the generation of where we are now is new. Like AI has been around for sort of 15, 20 years, large language models, data science, all these things have been around for a while. It's really the emergence of ChatGPT that's made everyone wake up about this. And obviously there are many versions of more like that, like Claude and Genesis, et cetera. But I would just put it in two categories. And a few people had my two categories. One category is generative AI, So it is really it's generating information based on what's happened before. So it's trying to predict what the next word is or what the next action is based on what it's seen before. So it's generating stuff from what's been there. And then the second one I would define as agentic AI, also called autonomous AI. So this is the AI actually making decisions. So what we'd use generative AI for is analyze information. So there's quite a few people doing this already in this space where they're taking PDFs, taking data that's already there, and converting that into something useful. I'd say that's mainly generative AI. Also, what you're using is generally doing that, like if you're using ChatGPT or Claude. And then agentic AI is then taking that and then going, okay, how do I make decisions out of this? A couple more things I would say is if those people who haven't seen the KPMG report, I think I'm allowed to say KPMG in a lawyer's office, can't do that in an accountant's office, but the KPMG came out, they've done a global study on AI, probably I think this is their fourth iteration, they do it about every 2 years. It ranks, so the latest survey has gone across 46 countries, about 5,000 respondents. Australia is pretty low on trust of AI. And I think partly that's because we're all expecting it to be right. And the more you use AI, I should have asked that question before. Who has used AI at least 5 days out of the last, who's used AI 5 days out of the last 10? Isn't that great? Well, that's most of the room. Yeah, one of the questions that worries me about the KPMG report, they ask about who hasn't used it once a month and less frequently than that. I mean, if you're going to start, if you're using AI, you know that it hallucinates. You know that you've got an issue with context. You also know that, it's like, to me, AI is like a graduate. It's like a very polite graduate. It's always going to give you an answer. And it'll give you an answer even if it's wrong. And what you've done when it's giving you an answer that's wrong, you've actually asked it to be a too big a question. So and as people who use it regularly know that, we use AI regularly to develop the prompt. So we have a whole range of technology within our business about how do we come up with the right prompt so that you're constricting what you're asking the AI to do. Anyway, look, we could talk. Sophie's right. We could talk about this forever, but really, two main versions. I'm saying generative AI and agentic AI.
Thanks, Daniel. And that just sort of sets the scene, a bit of 101, because I think one of the themes that will come through the discussion today, it certainly came through our discussions leading in today, was, it's important, even if you can't do the building, that you do actually understand, and this is important from a regulatory point of view as well, that you understand what it is doing and what is the design behind it, even if you're not the one doing and I'm going to say the term coding, but I'm probably even using the wrong term to say how it's built, but understanding the process and what is the thinking that it's doing and the outputs. And so if we now sort of take that as sort of our basis, when we're talking about AI, that's what we're talking about for the purposes of this afternoon. I'm going to throw now to you, Richard, because I think that we need to sort of take a step back then and think about what are the, in terms of what are the 3 top challenges for brokers, and then how can, AI, Insurtechs, how can they all help those challenges?
Thanks, Sophie, and Simone, thank you for the invite, and thanks for putting this together. The collaboration that's happening across the sector is awesome. So all power to all of us collaborating, because I think collectively we solve problems in a much more effective way. So just on the thought leadership conversation, NIBA's at next month's conference, we're going to launch our Ready or Reacting insight piece. And so we've been in market asking brokers actually this question, like, what are the things on your mind? We actually asked them lots of questions. I'll just point to 3. And they came up with eight issues. So the first question was, what are the big things that are going to impact your world? How prepared and ready are you for them? And the third one then was, so rank them in disruption. And I'll just talk about the first 2. First one, so I think the first one was about rank disruption. So what's on your mind? Regulatory change, Tatiana, regulatory change is massive. Thinking about then how to respond and informed consent's just the latest, but there's lots of other examples of reg change that kind of sometimes put friction in the way of a kind of seamless client conversation and transaction. Nick Cook and I, Trez of NIBA, were in Canberra recently in the context of the Chalmers productivity or simplification review. We kind of did the work and said, here's all the steps that a broker will go through from A to Z before that client gets to yes. And here's all the bits of paper. So we put it in front of Minister Molino. We said,
How big was it?
it was big. It's big. And in fact, he's since picked it up. That's another conversation. But anyway, really big. What we then said is, so complexity and cost, sometimes confusion, that's what it's leading to. But at a broker level, it's leading to huge amounts of, like, how do you just get ready for it? And for those of you in the room who've worked on the informed consent, those that were ready, and those that were not, like, that was the only fire in town to fight. So disruptive and so on. So that was number one. The second one was tech. So this whole conversation about AI. How do you cope with it? What are you doing with it? Is it a threat? Is it a friend or a foe? I'll just tell you two very brief stories. One just today. So NIBA's in the market for our finance world. We're talking to a likely candidate. We're sitting with their people. And then they mention, well, I'd like to introduce you to two of our other team members. Heidi, help me out with the names. It was Grace and it was the male name. Henry. Anyway, Henry and Grace aren't things, they bots. So this accounting firm are basically using two bots to do all sorts of stuff, scrape data, to get insight and so on. But as part of their value offer, they introduce it as part of their pitch. Interesting. Last week I was at a CBN conference talking to a broker who's a financial advisor and a broker, and the way he's using it is every single meeting which is on Teams is recorded. It's then stuck into the system to basically summarize the whole meeting. So all of the efficiencies that are coming out of that, they can then focus on. And to Daniel's point, which is, you got to get the context right and you kind of got to get the substance right. So those are some of the things that are keeping brokers up at night. Some are threats, some are opportunities. There's another 6 which we'll unveil at the NIBA conference next month, but it kind of speaks to the stuff that really is keeping the sector up at night, brokers large and small.
And so was it, Daniel, did you mention to me about the data being handled 8 times or something like that?
I'm sure everyone's got a view of how many times that is. I mean, we should ask a few brokers in the room how many times, but 4 times is the number that I often use. But it depends on which the broker is and how often they have to rekey it into different systems. But
that in itself is just a glaring time consumer, is when you're having to touch data that many times. So what about from the underwriting agency side, Jenny, in terms of those challenges, and are they consistent with what Richard's, insights on the broker side, or are there some differences?
So I think there's a lot of similarity there, particularly from reg and compliance, but I would put that more under margin pressures. So the way we look at it, there's a lot of pressure being put on our members, and rightly across the board, definitely happening. There's senior people that are being taking up a lot of time working in the reg space and not doing what they should be doing with their customers. You can't put a cost on that. I mean, what does it cost to the business? It's quite exorbitant, and it's damaging time for your customers. The other point, I guess, also is your client expectations are a lot higher now. They want more response. They want better service. Their expectations are higher. There's a cost to that. So again, the margin pressures are consistent. Carriers are looking to reduce commissions, so there's another burden there for our members. So I think that's a constant that plays out for them. The other one that's obvious, and I'm surprised, and it'll probably come up in your convention, I guess, is your talent. Your lack of talent, both from the younger generation coming in, and why would they want to come into our sectors when the systems are so slow and so clunky, and they're used to high-tech business personalised systems that they use themselves now. The expectations are that the service they're going to get in their work is exactly as what they do on a day-to-day basis. You've also got the issue with your talent leaving, with the older generation leaving the industry, and there's decades of talent walking out the door. So there's opportunities there for the Insurtech to be smarter with automation and get rid of that, help us with the repetitive tasks so that we are housing all of that intellectual knowledge into smarter systems that are going to work better. And probably the third one is just, as I said, I actually said customer expectations. So to me, that's probably the big thing there, the expectations they want moving forward and how can we deliver that in a tight environment.
And I suppose in circumstances where in our general day-to-day life, we are being targeted, you know, on our smartphones, everyone has a smartphone, in terms of bespoke, like it's talking to me as a consumer. And so when you have these relationships, you know, particularly for the brokers, it's really important that people feel very loved because you're their advisor, right? As opposed to even, you know, your bank contacting you, and everyone has a view about their bank, but their bank contacting them. But these bespoke solutions in, as you say, you've got margin pressures, you've got mix of generations in the workforce that you're trying to manage as well, and every business is trying to manage that. If I can throw to you, Daniel, in terms of if we think then Insurtechs, lots in this room, you're in that ecosystem. What are the solutions? What can the Insurtechs do to try and address some of these, the regulatory challenges, the friction, you know, that's created by some of that regulatory pressure, the talent retention, impact on margins, customer experience? Like it's a long list. Big answer coming here, Daniel. How you can fix this?
We can solve all of them, obviously. That's the answer. Look, I think the hard part here is these aren't easy issues to solve. Otherwise, we would have already solved them. And I think it's going to come down to people are addressing different parts of the value chain. I mean, that's definitely what Insurtechs do. So most Insurtechs start from a perspective and then sort of build out from there. So you know, obviously, from my background, you know, I was at Zurich working commercial insurance. I sort of came from that angle and sort of said, hey, look, commercial insurance doesn't work as well for the insureds. And as an insured, we are going through our insurance renewal at the moment, and we are filling out our PDF. And I've asked my accountant a few times, going, okay, when they say revenue, tell me what you mean by revenue. Does that mean next year's revenue, last year's revenue? Is that yeah, because we're insuring next year, not last year. So what do you care about last year? You care about the future. It's you know, a renewal is in the future. So there are problems, I think, at the front end with the client. No, I shouldn't say problems. There are brokers are massaging that data now. You know, I've sat in a few brokers' offices and been a bit surprised about the data that does actually go into the core systems of the insurers. I've sat next to a few and gone, how do you know that's right? Oh, I know that'll get the best price, or you know, and then it comes to, you know, some of those things are a risk when they come to claims time. So I think we've got an industry where yeah, the challenges are that most broking firms are mid-sized broking firms. They don't have the infrastructure or the big company thinking that the insurers do, or the insurers are thinking about process all the way through, because, you know, when you've got thousands of people working for you, you're thinking, how do you drive that out? We actually need to get some of that process thinking into the brokers, and you have to do that collectively. But then you've got this resistance in the brokers to the way I've always done things, because they're under huge pressure. As I said, if they are handling the data 4 times, then all they really care about is my customer happy? So I think our hugest challenge, if we can solve this in this market, this would be a great thing for us to export to the rest of the world. I believe we have really smart tech in this room. We have a lot of people in Insurtechs who have come from the industry and actually understand what they're talking about. You know, we don't have that many, you know, 20-year-olds who are running Insurtech, because you can't do that in insurance. You've got to have the experience already. We've got brokers who want to change but don't quite know how to do it. We've got underwriting agencies who do actually have a bit more scale than the brokers. So they've got a bit more money, and they think more like underwriters than they do like brokers. because at the end of the day, if their capacity disappears, that's the end of their world. So they've got to keep the capacity happy first and then the broker happy second. And then you've got insurers who are actually better at this. And the problem with insurers is they think they know everything best and they're trying to build it themselves, which again is a crazy solution. So there are lots of people out here who can help with compliance. You know, you've mentioned some, and people are focusing on that. They're trying to then bring technology to compliance because that's really the first burning problem. We have people who are trying to improve the tech, both at the client front end, who are trying to improve the tech between the broker and the client, who are trying to improve the technology around the underwriting. We've got all this data. I mean, this is why I'm excited about Insurtech, because we've got this is the industry that really has the most amount of data, that we should be really damn good at leveraging all this data, but we are not. How much of our data is unused? And I find it just staggering. And look, I've devoted the last 8 years or 9 years of my career to trying to solve this problem. But we don't seem as an industry to want to solve the problem. And is it because we're so fixated with the regulatory and compliance that it's actually the regulator that's causing us issues? Or is it we can't just get past this barrier that's sort of like, I feel like there's got to be something that pushes us. Anyway.
I'd like good pickup. So that stuff around friction and helping, certainly with a broker lens on, helping you unpack some of that friction, I think is exactly the sweet spot. And you're right as well. This is this is a different marketplace. You know, so the big players are thinking and spending and globally connected, and your high street broker or your country broker are kind of embedded and meshed in their communities and doing things. And then some of the big listed groups are starting to think about how do we bring this entire group on the journey. And certainly that's a place where NIBA is starting to think about. But I do think that it's going to be easy to get distracted. And I think one of the headwinds on the regulatory front is and you can see it happening in the strata conversation, you can see it happening in workers' comp conversation, you can see it in the remuneration debate. You can get the alignment of politicians and regulators, and that will distract everybody from everything. To Jenny's point, like what's your core job, leading a business? No, you kind of become the chief risk, legal and reputation people. And I think that's something that we have to manage. And the best way to manage it is to kind of manage ourselves. That's the self-regulatory piece, because if stuff fails, then politicians have to step in, and that's when you lose control, and that's a bad place to be. So I think the managing our own patch reputation piece, trying to manage some of the friction and actually lead, provide some leadership and guidance to the broking community in our sense about what the future will look like, and then let them get hurried on with it.
I think the data point's an interesting one, because I do think there is a significant regulatory burden that sits around data and what you can do with data. And I think that there's legacy data. And so with legacy data, how have you got the data? And in terms of, the privacy angle, for example, and I'm not a privacy lawyer, but I work alongside a lot of privacy lawyers and have had these discussions about, what are you allowed to do with, how do you get it in a shape that you can do something really meaningful with it, because it is meaningful information to really take advantage of. And then what can you do now to improve your ability to use incoming data in the future to maximise it as well? And I think one thing from not just from a plugging a regulatory lawyer's perspective here, but as a regulatory lawyer, one of many regulatory lawyers, I would say having those conversations as early as possible about what's the problem we're trying to solve, and what do we need to solve it, and how can we make the regulatory framework as simple as possible and get through it. And because I think it is harder to retrofit a regulatory solution to an existing framework.
But I think some of that you can solve now. Look, I'll tell you one of my favourite stories, which is really the reason why I got into what I'm doing now. So I was up in, when was that? 2011. I was up there. Zurich at the time was the only insurer who covered flood as standard in our business pack. So we knew we were going to pay out an absolute fortune to this, and I was happy to be the CEO and representing the business that was doing that. We had this one customer who came in who was so irate. I still remember, I won't mention his name, but I still remember him. and he won one of our policies, and he told me the story, and so we sent an assessor out there. This guy was insured for $500,000 worth of stock. The assessor came back to me and said, look, there's at least $1.6 million worth of stock that's been damaged. And this is a small business owner who has just lost $1.1 million because he had the wrong number on his insurance policy. Today, that number is sitting in Xero, it's sitting in NIBA, it's sitting in QuickBooks. You know, so that's the data that we're not yet connecting to, because this guy should never have been underinsured. And I would almost guarantee what happens in that situation.
Did you have a broker?
He went through a broker. Yes. So he went through a broker, and fortunately the broker was doubly wrong. Fortunately, the broker was doubly wrong. Because what the broker had done, our policy, the Zurich policy at the time, had interchangeable limits. And the broker had insured the property for the land value and the building value. So the guy was overinsured on his property, underinsured on his stock, and we swapped the limits out and we ended up paying $1.6 million. I mean, the story ends well, but you can just see that number is sitting in their cloud accounting. And so the first product we came out with when we started Evari was linking into the cloud accounting, but everyone said, who's Evari? And you want my most confidential information? So this is why I actually think the brokers can lead the change here, because they're the ones dealing with the customer. If you get the customer's permission to use the data, which brokers can do, you collect that data digitally, and then you work with the rest of the industry to provide that data, then I think, and again, when I started in Insurtech, I thought the broker was the one at greatest risk of being disintermediated. It's not. I mean, it's actually the one that can grab the most amount of share because they understand the customer more, and the insurers aren't prepared to spend the amount of money they need to do that. So I actually think brokers are sitting here on a huge opportunity of how do you leverage that data and then trade it off with the underwriters. So the data I'm talking about is not necessarily the old data. It's the data they've currently got that we're just not connecting with as an industry. And to me, I think it's crazy.
Yeah, and also because I do litigation, defending a range of professionals, not getting that right absolutely can get the broker into trouble, right? Sometimes some insurers, particularly in the business packs, sit there year on year on year when what you're saying is here is an opportunity. It's effectively automating that exchange of data, and there you go. Everyone's a winner. You know, the right insurance is there. The client's got what they need. More premium, so the insurers should be happy.
So because that's the way our industry works. You know, I mean, this is I have a few definitions for what Evari means, but to me it means everyone always has the right insurance. If you are insured for the right amount of money and you get the right policy as a customer, you pay the right premium, the distribution gets rewarded, the customer's got the right policy, the insurer gets the right premium, and we know if the customer's got the right policy, then when the event happens, the policy responds and the insurer just pays it out 95% of the time. And we know that happens in our industry now. The vast majority of our complaints are the customer bought the wrong policy in the first place. The insurer's never going to cover it because they've got the wrong policy. Or the data is wrong somewhere on there because was it ineptness or was someone trying to fiddle the premium?
And the broker closest to the customer. You're right. And so for us, that's the opportunity.
But it is exciting. So I'm going to throw it back to you now, Jenny, in terms like when you hear sort of the opportunity that's sitting right here, from your perspective, from the agency's perspective, how can that be grasped? What can we do to make it more successful from your perspective, this marriage of the agencies, the brokers and the Insurtech?
So I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, let's understand what's the problem we're solving for. So if we work together as a tripartite, for want of a better word, the three areas working together, it's vitally important that we understand. I think the thing for me, start small. Let's build, let's find a problem, work on it, start small, test and fail. I love the test and fail, but do the test, fail, work it on it, scale it up, and then release it and move on to the next thing. we all know what it's like. We're all guilty of it. A startup may come with a shiny toy, the big shiny toy, and we all get sent off on a little way because the shiny toy is fantastic, but it doesn't solve the problem or the issue that we've got. So we really need to understand and sit down together to work that out. And it's not hard. It really isn't. And I think, Daniel, you're on the right track with everything that you're saying there. But once you start doing that, you start solving for the problems that you've got. And one of them is efficiency. We've spoken about that. You start doing the automation and you start reducing the keystrokes and all of that sort of stuff. You're actually giving time for the brokers and the agencies to do what they do best, to spend time with the clients, to start to build those conversations, to look for those next opportunities, to just to build on those relationships, because the digital landscape is never going to take over the client relationship. So that's always going to be there. So let's work it together. The talent's going to improve because we're going to have better systems, that we're going to have younger people that are going to want to join the industry because they understand what we're solving for, and they want to be part of that journey and start to build that out. And that will help us immeasurably to get to the end result of what we're looking for, to do things the way they should be done. But the big thing for me is start slowly, do it, baby steps, build trust in each other, understand the problem you're solving for, and then work as a partnership to get the end result.
And I suppose across the panel, there must be some good examples of that happening already, like some good partnerships happening. Like, obviously that's the key to keep that momentum going. But have any of you got an example to share in terms of sitting down and getting that insight, either from the Insurtech side or from broker or agency side, where you've got that engagement at that ground level?
Well, there are lots of examples of that, and I think the agencies, the brokers that win in this space are ones who take it seriously and actually allocate people for the whole journey, because these things don't work. Like the shiny new thing doesn't work if it's not what the problem you're trying to solve. And some people go and get the shiny new thing and go, I haven't actually thought about what problem am I trying to solve? What are the requirements I need to do that? And then going through the whole process. And the brokers who are smart enough to go, I've actually dedicated someone to manage the change. They know the culture of our brokerage. They know how we're going to change, and they're able to bring the people along with them. The same in the agencies. You need people who are going to drive that change. And the technology won't work. I mean, this is the big challenge with AI. It's not going to work a lot of the time up front. But those people who test and learn early are going to get in a better position in 2026, 2027, 2028. I've actually got a slightly different question. This might take it in a different direction. When I started in this world, and I came out of Zurich just before I started Evari, I did a lot of study of what was happening in the entertainment industry, because I was interested about how that changed so drastically. And you think about how we all watch television at the moment, how different that is from sort of 20 years ago to where it is today. What is the thing? The thing I worry about for insurance, what's the thing that's actually going to drive the change? And is the regulator actually stopping the change because of something we've done? Like the trust in the trust for the general public in insurance is, I think, probably lower than it was 10 years ago. We've spent a lot of money on technology that time. And because the trust is low, the regulator is putting more forcing it around us. But is there something that people see as being something that will make the change happen in our industry? Because there doesn't seem to be at the moment enough things to make change happen where people go, I've just got to do that. And maybe AI is going to be that. I don't know.
So just picking up that thread. So, and this is the kind of customer at the centre of everything, with confidence and reputation that sits around that. So, anytime there's a big weather event, and I mentioned Dr. Molino before, he's got his 2022 flood inquiry, have to come out with their complaint numbers. Peter Dutton turned up with there's too much property in the sector comments prior to the big players have all been launching and announcing their big numbers in the last couple of weeks. So you put all of that into how much am I paying and how much am I getting? And then when the moment happens, am I actually getting paid out? And witness your example of your 1.6 million. Thank you, Zurich, for standing behind your policies way back when. And when moment of truth doesn't happen enough, that's when regulators will step in and kind of disrupt the sector. And you have a look in financial services on the other side in the financial advisory space. Advisor numbers have halved from 30,000 down to 15,000. Likely there'll be another 2 or 3 or 4,000 close out by the end of the year because of education requirements and so on and so forth. So, you know, we're not sitting in another universe. We're sitting kind of across the corridor of stuff that happens. And so when I look at the world, I'm going, you know, brokers sit at the closest point to customers. Brokers are doing lots of things, trying to run their businesses and manage their kids and manage their staff and people leaving and so on and so forth. So where does this sit in their priority list? And how do they grab hold of it? And then ultimately, for NIBA's perspective, how do we actually help them on this journey so that they're making the decisions? Some of the early adopters are testing and learning and playing, witness my earlier stories. But, you know, that's not the majority of people. And so the last place we want to get to is, which is already starting to happen, client rings up and says, I put my policy into ChatGPT and I reckon I don't have the right contract, or I reckon I get it cheaper, or ChatGPT says I should be with this player, not that player. So you kind of get that disruption turning in from client land, which is no longer just the anecdotal story. So there's also then the pressure coming from client. But look, in the end, I think it's on all of us to make sure that the sector does what it promises, which is when a client fills in a bit of paper, pays the premium, that when the approval event happens, that we're there to support them through whatever the giant big loss is.
And that also goes back to, we don't celebrate those wins very well, do we? You know, all we hear about is the bad news stories. It's always the case. So wouldn't it be great if we were just better as an industry to talk about the good news stories? That Zurich story would have been amazing, you know, instead of hearing about all the bad news. We heard about the floods and we heard a lot of them in Brisbane. It'd be good to hear a good news story every now and then, so that the regulators aren't on you and the customers don't think we're crooked and do everything wrong that we shouldn't be doing.
Because I think from the regulator and probably more from the Treasury perspective or from the government of the day's perspective, one of the key issues they want to avoid is, of course, underinsurance. And, you know, the stats are already there in terms of, in Australia, there is underinsurance. And this is where, you know, you talk about the trust. That is a critical part of this ecosystem, is how do you maintain that trust? And obviously, if we knew about 1.6, Daniel would have a lot more people knocking on his door. So and you wanted this one as well.
Just wondering why the client was irate when they got paid out properly.
Oh no, he was irate. He was irate early. So this was on the. So I got up to Brisbane pretty much as soon as I could fly in there. Which and when you're in as you probably know, when you're at a senior job, a disaster is a really good way to see following companies really quickly. And this was so he was already he'd already had an assessment, was already up in arms, but yeah, within sort of a week he was very happy. So that's fine, but it's actually part of the problem too, because you know the initial response is just there's so much pressure there. I was and you've all been through this. I was working for Suncorp when the bushfires were on in Melbourne, and we had a big exposure in not in Melbourne, in Victoria, Marysville, Yea, those sort of places, and that initial conversation, every time situation is different. So we went on the teleclaims from Suncorp reported to me. Then we had a whole of customers ring up. The average phone wait, the average time for a call was about an hour, because people were just so emotionally, people from Marysville were ringing up and going, "Oh, my kid and this and and you sort of go, back to the good news stories. We do such a great job of these things, but the customer wants to be serviced, and I was involved in all those repairs in Marysville, and some of them people weren't back at their house for 2 years. So it's a hard challenge, but I think I'm encouraged by customers. Customers are probably the ones who are going to make us change. And can we push the regulator back a bit? And maybe that's not what we do well as an industry, or are we happy do we have the wrong structure? This is about embracing digital transformation. But I'm just saying that, our whole world is we've got to deal with these things, and it's a complicated world to get the right outcome.
Just good news stories and picking up the thread. NIBA's got claims broker of the year, and the last 2 days we've spent in front of 18 and now 8 on the shortlist. And honestly, listening to some of the stories and the advocacy work that brokers do at that point in time. So I'm not sure whether your broker in Queensland was involved, but hearing some of the stories about, the computer said no, the broker got involved, and in 3 days things were transformed. I heard that on a conversation like an hour ago. So this kind of moment of truth right up front isn't evidence when the claim turns up, and how do the insurers, brokers and the insurer kind of work together? Because often brokers will get involved when the problem happens. Actually, it should have been a claim. We've all probably got stories of stuff that should have happened and didn't happen, but because we know our way through the system, it ended up happening. Well, how does the system provide the right answer every time, first time, not, the computer said no, and so I had to find another way into the big tower to get it to the right person.
And I think you need to think about those words. When it's grey, we will pay.
Yeah.
We used to use that a lot back in the day, and to me, it's true. If there's something that's contentious, there's an issue, don't put it through the box and wait for it to spit out and go, no, we can't do it. Find a way. Look at it differently and see if you can find a way.
But then that leads in, when we looping back to where we started, that for the industry to have the time and have those human connections, all the other things that they need to be doing need to be done really well, so that's where the energy and that's where the time, because that's the one thing we can't create more of, obviously, is time. Well, unless someone out there can tell me how to do that. I live in 6-minute unit land, so I'd really like to know how that works. But genuinely, this is about allowing these businesses and Insurtechs and agencies and brokers coming together to allow the businesses to elevate the activities where they can have that human relationship and focus on that, so that everything else is doing what it's meant to be doing. And I think it's clear that there are good examples of that happening in the industry, but there's an opportunity to do this better. And I would, the question I would sort of, before we jump and see what questions we have, and I do hope we have some after this discussion, would be, is it put your head in the sand time? Is it time to run really fast? Is it time to pause? And I'll start on your side, Daniel, in terms of what your view is. If you're sitting here today, or you go and talk to people sitting out there, how panicked should they be in terms of, am I on board or I'm not on board?
Well, I think this conversation has gone well away from technology, because there are a whole lot of things happening in our industry. I think if you're not up to date on where the technology is and trying it out, then you're going to fall behind. And I wouldn't be. Our industry doesn't move quickly. I would love our industry to move more quickly, but it doesn't. I was talking to someone about that earlier. Just get in and have a go. I mean, I think the businesses need to devote. They need to have some clear time to spend on technology and AI, so that they go, what is the biggest issue I'm trying to solve as my business at the moment, and how do I go and find someone to partner with to do that? And there are lots of people doing that across, whether it's regulation, there can see regulation people in here, whether that's using AI to bring data in, whether that's the underwriting part of it, whatever it is, you just need to go and work with someone who's going to do this with you and co-create.
Jenny?
I think that ship sailed. So if you're not on board, agencies and brokers, if you're not on board with an Insurtech, I think you're missing out on too much. We need to be leaning in. We need to be starting to have a go and have a look at it, because you're not going to catch up. You're just going to stay miles behind. The world's changing so fast. The regulation is changing. America's so far ahead of us. We want to stay smart. We want to be advanced. We want to be part of the worldwide environment. So we have to be part of it. If you don't, there's no point being around.
And Richard, do you have the same view?
To Daniel's point and to Jenny's point, the sector isn't seen as the cutting edge of tech, we didn't have 21-year-olds sitting in their garage forming, insurance solutions like the big US tech. So there's a little bit of that reticence. So are we kind of a bit of a legacy industry? So I think that's really the Insurtech opportunities: guide us, lead us, get in our faces. I think that's one of the answers. And then to Jenny's point, there's no time like threatened. And will that bus is there one bus and will it only leave and if you miss the bus you've missed it, or is there another bus in an hour or a week or a month? Well, no, there's going to be lots of buses coming through, but I think the reason why this conversation is not just a tech conversation is because there's lots of other stuff going on, and where our members play, where brokers play, it's not just a single issue. It's a kind of holistic thing. We haven't spoken yet at all today about cyber and disruption and the fact that people have lost data and what happens when the call comes in and so on. And there are a bunch of issues, the talent conversation, the education conversation, and so on. So I think we've kind of got to choose our topics, but certainly if I finish as I started, in NIBA land off the back of this research, ready or reacting, the number one issue is red, the number two issue is tech, but the number one disruptor is going to be tech. And so that's why conversations like this are super valuable.
Thank you. Now, we've got some time for questions. Oh, great. We've already got a question.
Hello. I have a question.
Extra mic.
I don't need a mic.
Coming your way.
I don't need a mic.
Yeah, Jeff doesn't need it.
All right, I'll take a mic. All right, I have a mic. Everything you guys have said is fabulous. The realism, however, is that most brokers are part of a network. Be it Steadfast, NBET, AV, Rural Infinity, and so forth. And subsequently, they're, almost dictated to by the network with which they are part of. So as much as some of the smaller players and so forth want to actually do their own things, they want to invest, they want to change, they want, and so forth, they're dictated to. How would you actually then suggest that players within their networks are actually able to drive change when they're subsequently dictated to by the parent?
I'm happy to grab hold of that one. And Jeff, thanks for the question. I wouldn't use the term dictated to. Sounds like dictating. I think it's much more subtle than that. It's much more fluid than that. It's much more around influence. So when you choose to be part of a large group like the groups that you mentioned, there are a bunch of services that turn up. And having come off just in the last couple of weeks, the NVEST conference yesterday, last week at CBN conference, these big issues are exactly the things that the leaders of those organisations are thinking about and trying to solve for. The challenge, but also the opportunity in this room and for all Insurtechs is if you need to access the broker on the ground floor, there's probably a couple other doors you're going to go through. So how's your pitch working? What's your model looking like in terms of influencing people who influence 1,000 or 5,000 or 200 or whatever it is? It takes a bit longer to get there, but once you get through the door, and I've heard again, coming off the back of yesterday, some amazing partnerships as groups are starting to think about how to migrate from this point to that point. So I think that's the game in town. It's a nuanced relationship that takes time, but and there's influence at different levels. It's not just go to the broker, as you say. You kind of got to go to head office and find the right people. But strategically, everyone's talking about this. Everyone's thinking about it. And the earlier message around lead us, guide us, shape us, absolutely relevant there as well.
Another question? Mike's on his way.
Hello. I liked your analogy of buses. I actually think there are too many buses. I think people are dreadfully confused. I think the word AI is so overused. And I think people are terrified of it because they don't understand it. And there's also the commercial challenge. Insurtechs need a commercial relationship. So in amongst all of that, let's do a proof of concept. Let's do a startup. Everybody has to make money out of the transaction. And my question to the three of you is, do you think people are so confused that they actually don't know where to start? Because this is a well-intentioned group, but individuals have to make decisions in MGAs, and the leaders of those businesses have to make money. And do you think that they're so confused that they actually don't know what to do?
I think so. I think you're spot on.
So how do we help them? How do we practically assist?
Happy to jump in and talk about buses and bus timetables if you want. How do we help them? Inform and educate. This is an education conversation, like any revolution that rolls through. And most of us who are of certain ages, we've seen lots of revolutions roll in. Any penny the world will fall in, things will completely change. Whatever it is. The AI conversation, the tech conversation, how do you manifest it in your business is an educate piece. That's why it's important to get in front of scale amounts of brokers in all sorts of ways. And sometimes, sometimes the moment will be exactly right on. Sometimes we feel like we're talking to the wall. But when the moment is right and the message arrives, it's when some of the magic happens. And you're right. More startup Insurtech hanging on the door going, like, the bank account's running out, I need the deal to close. How many more conversations with copies am I going to have before I get to yes? Well, there's an incumbency in the big brokers or the big insurers that are, they've got other fish to fry and other issues. And so kind of when micro startup businesses where they really can do culture meets established big revenue businesses, it's kind of how do you figure that stuff out?
It's clunky.
Yeah.
So mine's down.
Oh, yours are back, sorry.
So it's really, maybe it's a question for you two as well. So, this forum's great, and I went through the list beforehand, and you're probably 2/3 of this room are likely to turn up to another Insurtech event. The ones who we don't necessarily interact with are the ones who are making the decisions.
Yeah.
So how do we as a community get better at that? But between and maybe it's I don't know, it's two separate conversations, or whether it's a collective conversation, because I don't think that we are. I mean, it's been one of the issues where we connect with the zealots, but not with the people who actually decision makers who are handling other problems every day. And how do we make it easy for them so they can go, oh, I now see it. It's really like, the problem for us sitting on this side is, well, obviously you can tell I come from the zone of, here are the problems I've personally experienced in the insurance industry and how do I solve those? But they may not be the ones that everyone at UAC wants to solve, or everyone at NIBA wants to solve. How do we get those into, so we can go, right, here are some specific things you can go away and do. And even if there's a few of us competing doing it, it's better for a few of us to come up and go, well, I do it this way, I do it that way, I do it this way. But we actually need help to crack this, because we're not changing quickly on it.
And I think that's a great idea, Daniel. The concept, imagine if the large broking houses or the large MGAs said, here are 3 use case problems. I will give those problems to a number of small Insurtechs in Australia. At their cost, they will come back to us with a solution. So the privilege of getting, as you've described, from the ground floor to the top floor to speak to the decision makers is an incredibly challenging thing for an Insurtech business. And frankly, most of them, they're so overwhelmed with the number of people that want to talk to them that you actually rarely get the opportunity. And if you do, you've got very limited time. And typically someone walks in behind you and they say, gosh, aren't you two people saying the same thing, regardless of the fact that your business names are different? Imagine if they gave us the opportunity to solve a problem for them on our time, and we came back to a group of folk who were decision makers, assuming that the problem's real, and then they could see what a group of people like this could do for them without having to go through that dreadful sales cycle.
I think it's incumbent on us as leaders to try and facilitate those conversations. And I know we have at UAC, we've just done a strategy day for the next 3 years, and part of that conversation was what is it? How can we improve the benefits for our business service members? For the likes of Evari, etc. What does that look like? And one of those pieces that we did talk about was possibly having a talk to working with Simone. This is obviously for the next 3 years, so not for tomorrow. Don't get too excited. Just putting it out there. But is there something that we can do to bring a group of heads of agencies into a room and have a round table and say, this is what we've got the issues for. What have you guys got? What can you talk to us about? It's not a pitch as such, but some sort of open environment that we facilitate from our side, from an MGA side, and Simone or the equivalent do it from their side, so that we get the right people in the room to start to have those conversations and make them real and targeted.
Absolutely.
And I think that's exactly what needs to happen.
And I think that's a good spot. Richard, I'll let you, if you've got something to add, sorry.
I was just going to do a shameless plug to come to the NIBA convention next month, because the Insurtechs will be there, underwriting agencies will be there, broker leaders will be there in spades, and you've got 2.5 days to pitch and pitch.
Fair enough. I'm glad I let you do your pitch too. But I think what the messages or the themes I'm getting out of today's discussion is we're still at the beginning. There's a lot of really good examples. There's a lot of examples out there, but there's so much more to be done and so much more opportunity. And although I think there was a reference, it's confusing, it can be terrifying, but it's exciting and it's an opportunity. And hopefully from this discussion and that keep that momentum going. But I really just thank you everyone, but I really want to thank our panelists for their candor today. It's been fantastic. So thank you, Jenny. For us to jump on his way.
I like your question.
Thank you, Sophie, for that. Great job moderating. It was a challenging group to keep on track. You've done amazing, and thank you, Daniel, Richard, and Jenny. Great to have those perspectives. So we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to just bring up our Insurtechs. They're going to have 30 seconds to just tell us who they are. So first up in the hot seat, Scott Broken. Yeah, and then so if you've got a banner, maybe just line up over here. Carolyn's gonna change the thing. Just tell us who you are, what you're doing. You're one of our newest members, I think. Yeah.
Thanks. Hey everyone, my name is Scott Bennett. I'm one of the founders at Broken. So we are all about building AI tools for insurance brokers to help reduce manual admin. So yeah, the first tool that we built was actually released a couple of weeks ago. So it's able to extract and reformat information from insurance PDF schedules and able to input that directly into things like Winbeat or Insight. So the next thing, which we're piloting this month, is a tool which can analyze and compare policies holistically. So we're able to input not only wordings, but also schedules, endorsements, and whatnot. So yeah, feel free to come and chat.
Next up, Matt.
Hi everyone, Matt Alicios from Clear 21 Assessing. This product I look after. In a nutshell, essentially we help assessors and insurers streamline the claim management process and loss adjusters to integrate with repairers around Australia for ease of communication, tasking, and passing back and forward of assessment requests and claim lodgements.
Matt, and what you're saying, there's quite a lot of different businesses.
I'm Fogarty it is, if you didn't know. Curium is a tech platform And we were called out before. We love regulatory change. We automate it, make it easy, simple, give time back to people. And shameless plug-in, we're running a live risk and compliance conference in October. Please join us.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Killian Cotter. I'm here with Canopy. For those of you who don't know Canopy, Canopy is a modular full stack insurance platform, but really easily allowing you to embed that insurance platform within any customer journey, any digital experience. So we are API first, we're configurable, and we work with carriers and MGAs to rapidly launch and scale products. So think weeks, not years, and at a fraction of the cost. But the real kind of benefit of Canopy is all about that distribution. So we partner with an ecosystem of partners enabled to embed that product, I suppose, anywhere in that customer journey, anywhere in that digital experience. So yeah, happy to chat to anyone after. Thank you.
From my Val.
Evening. So if your home was turned upside down and you lost everything, would you be able to create a simple digital record of everything you owned? And most people can't. So we've created a very simple app. You walk around your home and you document everything. It gives you an accurate sum insured. It tells you where you're underinsured, and it basically allows you to put receipts in. So you have a claim, you have a claims ready document to hand over to your insurance for a claim. So I've heard a lot about being prepared upfront, and that's exactly what we do.
Milad from Property Expert.
Hi, Milad from Property Expert. Basically, we work with insurers, MGAs, brokers who manage property claims, or we also work with real estate. We basically deal with repairs, maintenance, and so on. And what makes us Property Expert is basically a mixture of our technology and our expertise. We have AIs that have been trained for over 13 years, from basically claim records, property images, damages, invoices, quotes. And we've been able to basically form the combination of both experts and our technologies to be able to basically train these so that the model can actually pick up anomalies, pick up issues in the claims processing, and also pass it on to our experts who can actually help resolve that issue. Being a claim coverage conversation, negotiating a price on an invoice, or whatever it might be.
Hi, John from Raindrop here. We do three main things at the moment, and we like to think we do them very well. We standardize policy wordings. We have a comparison tool so you can see the policy wording side by side. And we have an AI chatbot that is trained in insurance. So it's safe to use and easy to use. So happy for a chat.
Thanks. I still don't need a mic. Hello, my name is Jeff. NCG Process, we are a global software company specializing in intelligent document processing and process orchestration. Simply put, we help to digitize and automate those complex, high volume document and data-driven processes, such as renewal quotes, claims, FNO, requests for COCs. Ultimately, we are helping brokers and insurers greatly improve the customer experience, lower costs, and meet regulatory compliance. At TCG Process, we envisage a world where we are turning admin people into non-workers and enabling brokers to get back to what they're doing best, and that is being brokers. Any questions? No questions?
Outside over a drink.
Kick him off, well.
Hi everyone, my name is Aurora Boss. I'm one of the co-founders of Zemble, and my great co-founder Alfonso is here tonight. At Zemble, we've been around for about 6 years. We've seen a whole lot of things in claims, and we're turning our attention now to how brokers collect client data. That's all we think about, brokers of all stripes. Imagine if that was a much more delightful experience, both for brokers and for the end customer. We have a suite of data capture tools that turn your brokerage into a much more modern and friendly experience for not just your end client, but all of the multiple parties that they have to collect information from too. So imagine a world where you could suddenly offer a really modern, flexible and accessible way for your clients to share that data. And imagine if you could not be chasing them for all that paperwork that you spend so much time doing. That's what we think about all day. And one more point, I think that we've been in this for a while, and the best Insurtechs truly do partner with you. And I know that most brokers every day, even though you are actually data experts, that's not what you think of yourselves as. So at Zemble, we come in and we really partner with you and become your data experts. So come and see us. Thank you.
Hello, John Gamble, founder of Ubind. We have an Insurtech platform that's used by brokerages and NGAs, and it helps them to scale their distribution. So we do a lot of work with brokers where we're doing kind of schemes or association work, selling high volume to a particular targeted group, and with NGAs distributing to brokerages. Some of the things that it's a full Insurtech platform that can run an insurance business. Some of the things that we're excited about and working on at the moment in AI are things like AI chatbots that understand the policy wording, extracting information from documents to minimize read by brokers and things like that as well. And also on the reporting side, using machine learning to actually extract meaningful information from data to help decision making, so you can refine your ratings engine for better profitability. So if any of those things are of interest, come and talk to me, and yeah, we can help you.
We can have some great food and drinks. So we have a few events coming up. Our AI working group, we should kick off this meeting next week. We have Professor Kahim Kohanda, I'm going to say that wrong. I'm talking about some of the business impacts of AI. And we also have a webinar, which will be going out to our members and partners today, working with expert AI around sharing some of the drivers, barriers, and global insights. And we'll also having the ICA's just released a report, and their speaker will also share some insights in that event. If you're into life insurance, some of you might have tackle into that sector. We've got a breakfast roundtable that's not working. We're coming to NIBA. We've got 12 Insurtechs plus some others. We're doing a breakfast masterclass. So yeah, if you're going to be there, let us know. We'll also probably catch up for dinner on the Monday night. So that's super fun. We're really looking forward to that. And our AGM for members and partners is on the 19th. So if you're a member and partner, come along, it'll be a great sort of end of year wrap up. And then in the diary, 18th February, Wednesday, the day after UAC, so you can do a double bill. UAC on the Tuesday, have a rest, and then come to Insurtech Live on the Wednesday. We're just planning some delegations, so we're definitely planning to come to the UK next year to launch or to sort of further our Insurtech pathway. Probably in May, potentially looking at Asia, and then also thinking about the US. It's kind of a joke from the US. Members that are in the room, if you haven't yet completed your survey, a final plug for that. And finally, we have a special offer. We did this 2 years ago. It was really successful. We got some great brokers who partnered with our ecosystem. So this one night only, we know brokers and agencies love the deal. One night only. If you want to know more about Insurtech Australia and come along to all these great events, get in touch. If you get a 50% offer to join, you can sign up before the end of the month. So just get in touch with Minna, she's just over there, Carol and the team. As you can see, great community, so be part of it.
Thank you. Thank you to the DLA team. Always awesome.
Thank you, Jenny, and Richard, and Tom, and you, and thank you, everyone else. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I will actually. Yeah.
And I. A long time ago.
Technology.